Alright, 97.7 Outlaw Radio FM listeners, you already know what time it is, and right here, right now, we got an individual that I had the opportunity to grow a friendship with these past couple years. He airs not one, but two shows here on the radio station. We got the one and only TJ Supa Dupa of the Radio Supa Show and Rock the Mic Show right here, live on the line, man. How are you doing this evening?
Yo, I'm good, Chief. How you doing, sir?
Oh, man, I'm doing great, man. Best I can possibly be down here in Canada, man. We just got that heat down here, but I know you're out there in Arizona, man, so I can't even talk about heat because I know you're right out there in the desert.
It's ballistic today, man. I'm just telling you, I was driving because I had a meeting earlier today, and my phone said it wanted to turn off because the phone was too hot inside the car with the air conditioning on. I just want to put it out there like that. You know, that's what kind of heat. That's the kind of heat we're dealing with right now, Immortal. That's what it's looking like right now.
I gotta say, man, first and foremost, that right there makes me scared to even go out there, but I thought I had it bad today complaining about the heat, man, but I realized just hearing that, it makes me feel like it's about 60 degrees down here in Canada.
It's a different kind of situation. I probably need to take the trip to Ontario before you take the trip to Phoenix. That's what I'm thinking.
But TJ, I do know you're a very busy individual, man, so I'm going to dive right into this, man. But I got to take you back to the beginning of your iconic, lengthy career here, man. And I got to ask, man, first and foremost, what originally made you decide to get into the industry, bro? Because if anyone knows TJ Supa and you know this man's resume, like, it's everlasting. It's pages upon pages of everything this man has done.
Yeah, it's been a long run, like almost like a long nonstop run. Man, my whole industry thing started. It started from me wanting to be an MC, or me being an MC, really. I always considered the beginning of my career, or the beginning of me in music, at any point, is I was running around my mother's house, and there was a music video. MTV was on. And I ran into this one room, like the living room where the TV was, and I'm just running around with my brother, and there was a Run DMC music video on, and it was the video Rock Box. And I remember, like, stopping, and it's like the whole world just froze at that point, and it was just me, and I'm just watching the TV, and, like, nothing else mattered. And I'm watching this Run DMC video, and I always kind of consider that to be the beginning of me doing anything in music. You know, I look at it at that point. I think after that I started writing, and, you know, me and my brother would start writing, and we would start battling each other and doing all kinds of creative stuff with music. But the beginning, that was the very beginning for me.
And also as well, man, I actually read, because even though we've been doing business together for years, I always like just digging in the pot and digging for the research, man. And I even learned some things, man, about you while doing my research. But you began your music industry career working over at Jive Records, man. I was wondering if you could actually tell us a bit more about that. And of course, man, how did you originally land that opportunity over at Jive?
Jive was really interesting, man. So, like my life is, you know, my life was that, you know, my whole family's from New York. I was born on the East Coast, and we were moving from New York to Arizona when I was 4. So I get to Phoenix, Arizona when I'm 4, and I'm coming up here, and, you know, I go through high school, you know, just like I said, I saw that music video, I started to rap. I'm rapping all the way through, elementary school. I'm battling all the way through high school. And after high school, I end up going to a recording school that my friend Kawan the Shogun found. And I'm at this recording school, and somewhere in the middle of the recording school, like, you know, in the middle of the session, whatever it was, the not the teacher, but like the head of the school, he comes in the classroom, and he's like, hey, out of nowhere, you know what I mean? And you can imagine, like, when I tell you, if somebody just happened to walk in the studio and like, hey, you know what, everybody needs, there's 10 of us in the class, we like, 8 out of the 10 of you guys need to leave the state. You guys need to move. You can't stay here after you get out of recording school because there's no music industry here. So if you want to do anything with this stuff that you're learning, you're going to have to go to a place where there's a music industry. So, and just like I said, the surprise on that would be like if somebody just walked in and said, Immortal, listen, you got to move out of Canada. You know what I'm saying? Like, that's kind of what it was like. You know, I think I'm 18 at the time, and somebody's telling me I need to move. You know, so that's what it was. So I took that, and I think I went home and had a conversation with my mother, and and we're having these conversations. Of course, I still have some family back in New York, so we get to the end of this school session, and you have to do an internship. So somewhere between conversations with my mother and that thing, him telling us we had to leave, and me thinking about New York, I'm thinking I should try to land an internship somewhere in New York. So I have a background in engineering, but I've always leaned more towards administrative stuff or just music, period. So I go home and I pull out all my records and cassettes and I spread them out on the floor. And I'm looking at the record labels on them, and I got some Boogie Down Productions, I got some Steady Beat, I got I don't know, an LL Cool J Bad record, you know what I'm saying? So I'm looking at the labels on these records. I'm seeing Def Jam, I'm seeing Cold Chillin', I'm seeing Jive Records. So I had to go to the school with 5 places that I wanted to go. So I just looked at the record labels and I went back to the school and I told them hey, I want to go to these 5 places. And they're like, okay, cool. And then nothing. I'm going to classes. And then 2 weeks later, 2 weeks after this, the school comes back to me and they say, hey, Jive Records wants you. And I'm like, oh, that's interesting. That's kind of crazy. I'm in Phoenix and Jive Records is saying we want you in New York. So, yeah, that's how everything landed at Jive Records. Over the course of finishing school, I finished school and then, I had, just like I said, I had family, aunt and uncle who lived out, and a couple aunts and uncles that lived out in New York. So, my mother had conversations with them, and I ended up moving back there and starting my internship at Jive Records.
And I gotta say, man, Jive Records is, personally, I gotta say, man, probably one of the biggest labels to ever grace the music industry, man. They've had everyone from hip-hop to the Backstreet Boys, Justin Timberlake, you name an artist or genre, they have it.
Right. I mean, NSYNC and Backstreet Boys were from there. On the hip-hop side, it was Tribe Called Quest, Boogie Down Productions, Jazzy Jeff and the Fresh Prince. You know what I'm saying? So a lot of different things happened through Jive Records. So yeah, it was a beautiful place to be.
And I gotta ask, man, before moving off the topic of Jive, because obviously now you hang out with famous people all the time, but back then you were just an 18-year-old kid, man. So when you were interning over at Jive Records, was there ever that one artist that walked through the lobby where you're like, holy shit, what the heck, man? Did you ever get starstruck when you actually saw some of those artists kind of walk through the record label building?
You know what, Immortal, man, I've been starstruck a couple of times, not more than a couple of times. As we go through the story, it'll make more sense. You know what I'm saying? But I've been starstruck a lot of times. But somewhere in my career, I learned, I kept this mindset of okay, if you ever get to a place where you're starstruck, and because you're in recording school, and so just what they teach you in recording school, they teach you, to not be openly starstruck or not be openly, not openly try to draw attention to yourself if you're working in an environment like this. They don't want you to go there and then jump out in front of famous people and do crazy stuff. You know what I'm saying? So, going back to the question, yeah, that happened. That definitely happened. There was a couple R&B artists that came through Jive. I don't quite remember them. It probably happened with Keith Murray. I had a CD out in had his music out in Arizona. I'm watching his videos, and then 2 weeks later, you're at Jive Records, and then you got just famous people walking past you, fairly regularly, or you're working on famous people's projects fairly regularly. So that stuff happened, and that's just Jive. There's other places that I worked at later, which it was a far turn up from Jive. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, so that did happen, but I've always kept it in my head that if there's something that happens that's real crazy, try not to flip out right when it happens. Just find somewhere where you can go be by yourself, like a closet or your car or something like that. And if you need to spaz out there, spaz out there. Just try not to spaz out in front of people.
And before we actually move off the topic of other record labels, I know you worked for a lot of them, man, but the one that really stood out to me was actually Bad Boy Records, man. I have to ask, what was it like actually just working alongside Puffy and Bad Boy? How did you actually land that gig?
Right, so this is interesting. So I did not actually work at Bad Boy. We've done work with Bad Boy Records, and after I left Jive, there was a couple major recording and mastering studios that I worked at. One was the Hit Factory. You'll hear Big talk about it if you listen to Big's albums. And then the other one was the studio. It was a real big mastering engineer, Herb Powers, and his studio was Powers House of Sound. And when we worked at both of those studios, we did a lot of work with Bad Boy at both of those studios. So it was regular to see, like, a Bad Boy artist come into the studio to do work, especially, like, when I was at Herb Powers' studio. That was, like, it was like a regular thing. Like, I would go to Daddy's house in Supa to drop things off and physically speak to him. You know what I'm saying? Or he would physically come to the studio, or people that worked at Bad Boy would physically come to the studio. You know, when I was at Hit Factory, Big came in. And then when I was at the studio after that, the one I'm talking about now, her Power Studio, like, we actually had Big's album. We were mastering Big's album when he was killed. So we had the whole album, and then he was killed in California, and, like, I remember it being real crazy, like Puff, like, not exactly knowing if he wants to make changes to it or if he just wants to keep it the same, because, you know, the second album was like Life After Death, and it talked about Big dying in the second album. So they were considering making changes to it, but they just decided to leave it the way it was. But that's what it was. So that was kind of my experience with Bad Boy. When I left Jive Records, I did get a phone call from them to go intern there, but I never got that call. It came to somebody at the spot that I was staying at, and they never got that call. So I never got to talk to whoever called me from Bad Boy.
And I have to just touch base on this, man, because you said a few moments ago that you actually did some mixing and whatnot on Life After Death, man. I gotta say, that's probably one of the biggest hip-hop records ever, man. Like, what was it like just being in the studio? And, of course, do you actually remember any of the stories behind that recording session? Because that's major.
Yeah, so I was in the mastering studio. So, you know, you go to the studio, you go through recording, and once you're done with the recording, then you would send it to the mastering studio. Mastering would make sure the CD is all lined up, making sure that, you know, you'll notice if you listen to records, at least from back in the day, I don't know necessarily if it's like that right now, but if you listen to records from back in the day, if you're listening to one song and you're nodding your head when one song goes off, if you keep nodding your head, if it's mastered correctly, the next song should come in on beat while you're nodding your head from the last song. You know what I'm saying? So mastering did a lot of stuff like that. Mastering basically set it up to go to pressing and send it off to, you know, the pressing companies so they could get them off to the stores. So that's the department that I was in. So yeah, there were stories because, you know, we saw celebrities, like, on a daily basis. Like, it wasn't an area, you know, I always say we live in kind of a social media phase right now where you know, we take pictures of everything. But it wasn't necessarily so much like that back then. But I would say that, you know, like, you know, you do radio. You know what I'm saying? You're on the radio, I think, almost every day. You know what I mean? So it's not a big event for Immortal to be on the radio. Like, we hear Immortal every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, everybody knows about Outlaw Radio. So for me, go in the studio to see a celebrity, I saw that every day. You know what I'm saying? Like, it was Mary J's coming in today. Oh, okay. Teddy Riley's coming in 2 days. Oh, okay, cool. Jimmy Jam and Terry Lewis are going to be here. Oh, okay, cool. Mariah Carey's coming in. Oh, okay. That was regular. So it wasn't even like an event because I worked in these facilities for so long, and this was like regular activity. So I didn't take pictures, you know what I'm saying? We just saw people like this every day.
And also as well, man, aside from the music industry, you are also an actor who was in several movies, with one of them actually being the 2001 film Hoop Soldiers. I gotta ask, man, what actually made you decide to venture into the acting side of the entertainment industry? And of course, how did you actually originally land that role in Hoop Soldiers?
This is really interesting. I'm glad we're talking about that, because most of the interviews that I do, we don't talk. They never ask about the film stuff. So yeah, I have done some film work. I'm even in the process of working on a film right now. So coming up, you know, like going back, you know, I told you when I had a brother, my brother Chris Rogers. He works in film the same way that I work in music. You know, he's as heavy in film as I am in music, which turned out to be a really good situation coming up, because I would make breakthroughs in music, and he would make breakthroughs in film. So he was working for a film company in Phoenix when I was in New York, running one of the recording studios that I was at. I'm sorry, I'm just drinking right now. But so at the film company he was working for, he ended up becoming director of this film, Hoop Soldiers. So he was speaking to me about the role, and I told him, hey, you know what? There's a lot of artists that I deal with down here in New York. I can probably, like, give you guys music for the film. And he's like, okay, cool. So he wrote the script, and there was inside of the film, there were scenes where there were some concerts that were happening. You know, the film is about, you know, kind of like a violent basketball game that people bet on. But there were some scenes inside the film where at those basketball games, there were performances. So I ended up being one of the performers. So I had to fly out from New York back west to film that scene for Hoop Soldiers. So I performed in Hoop Soldiers as myself, as one of the artists performing at one of the games. And then on top of that, I was also the music supervisor for the film. So I provided the music for the film, and then I also performed in the film.
I gotta say as well, man, that's actually absolutely extraordinary in my personal opinion. Like, I try my absolute hardest, man, to actually include everything, and I do actually have one of your songs actually. That since we're on the topic of you being an artist and whatnot, man, I actually have one of your older songs actually in the station's rotation, ready to actually play immediately following this interview. That way, the individuals that know you as the radio personality and actor, they also get to actually hear a little bit of a taste of your music, man. And since we're actually on that topic, one of the songs I'm actually going to be playing immediately following is actually the song you released April 7th of 2016 titled No Justice, featuring D. Ray Brown, man. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners what can they expect from this song when I do play it after this broadcast.
You know what's interesting, man? And I had to listen to it again, you know, because I've been asked about it. That song really is like, if you listen to my verse in the song, that song is really my origin story. That song is really telling you, like, in rap format, you know, everything that I'm telling you now, and then, of course, you know, the you know, whatever would come in the future. But that's what No Justice is. There was a project that I was working on with Dre Brown, and we ended up, you know, getting a lot of singles together that we released, and that's one of them. I love that song a lot, you know what I mean? I still listen to it a lot today. I listen to it as if it's not me rapping it, but yeah, no, it's a perfect choice. It's really my origin story in that song.
And also, as well, as all of our regular radio station listeners know, you are the host of the critically acclaimed worldwide syndicated radio show on over 100 different radio stations, Radio Supa show. I was wondering if you can actually tell our listeners the history behind this syndicated radio program, and of course, what originally made you decide to not only create your own show, but also station as well.
Right. Good question, man. The station happened because, okay, so rewind. I worked on those film projects, and when I finished the film projects, I ended up with a couple of soundtracks from some of those film projects that I did. So I got to this point of, well, I have no way to put these film projects out. There's no record label here, you know, in the state that I'm in. There's no record label, so I need to figure out a way to put them out. So I ended up landing in a place where I was going to open my label. I'm like, I'm not going to sit and wait for somebody. I'm going to open a record label. So I opened a record label and landed, you know, digital distribution first and then physical distribution for some of these film projects. So I'm working on, fast forward a little bit, I'm working on releasing an album for a young lady that I was doing some work with. And we were getting to the point where the album was about done, and we were looking to get some radio rotation for the album. You know what I mean? So I went to a couple of the FM stations here, and I'm like, yo, hey, look, we got this album coming out. Can we get some spins on this? And they're like, well, we spun that song like 2 years ago, so we can't put it in rotation again. And I'm like, okay. So we're at this point where, you know, and of course this is before this digital age, you know, this digital age where we got beautiful places like Outlaw Radio. It's before that, you know, so like we're at this point where we have to promote this album. We got to figure out a way to promote this album. I had a friend of mine that I met at the Hit Factory who was in my ear for a little while. He was like, yo, TJ, yo, you should kick around opening a radio station, blah, blah, blah. and I'm ignoring them. There was just too many things going on in life. I was like a single dad. I was working full-time at the time. I just put out a record, you know. We just shot a music video. It was a lot of stuff happening. You know what I'm saying? Like, you know, it was crazy. So I wasn't thinking about opening another thing. But the idea came in when I got to this point with this album I'm working on. I'm like, how am I going to promote this? Like, there's no way to promote it. And then, like, also, like, I had other projects that I put out. You know, the albums before this that I did, or the soundtracks before. How am I going to promote these things? I need a way to promote them. So the idea for the radio station came in from a need to be able to shine a spotlight on creative individuals, myself, other producers, managers, artists who were not going to be able to get into the regular radio system and get spins for their records or get, you know, promotion for their projects or their books or their small business. If they weren't able to get to FM radio, then we wanted to be able to provide a way for individuals to do that. So that's where the idea for the show and the station started, you know, and we're 13 years in on both of them. So it's been going a long time, and over the course of time, you know, my roots being in a lot of what we talked about, you know, with a lot of what we talked about with the recording studios and the environment I'm in, and the top of the industry and the celebrities. So over the course of time with the show, I started leaning towards, you know what, we really need to put a focus on celebrities because that's the environment that I came from in the music industry. So for me, that's the environment I felt like I should be in. You know what I mean? So that's just the kind of, and you understand, you know, we see what goes through Outlaw Radio, so you have an understanding of that, but
definitely.
That's where it was at. You know what I mean? That's the direction we wanted to go, and the syndication came because I wanted to try and touch as many people as I could touch. You know, as many people as we can touch, as many people as we can, you know, spread this to, as many people as we can, you know, have a positive effect on. That's where the idea for the syndication came.
And I gotta say as well, man, when you actually first reached out to syndicate your show on my radio station, I was so new at that point on the airwaves, man. Like, I was actually so fresh. I had, like, no content other than music I was airing, man. When I first heard your show, and I still tell my wife and everybody that asked me about your show, I sat back and I was like, why the hell does this guy want his show on my station? Because, like, I wasn't even that big at the time. Like, yeah, I was doing my own interviews, but as for content,
Amazing.
I had nothing. So I was like, what the hell, man? But at the end of the day, man, I gotta say, while we're on the topic of this, man, thank you for just the support you've shown my station since day one, man. Because you are a day one supporter and day one show on the radio station as well.
Beautiful, beautiful, and you know what? I have to give you 1,000 salutes, Outlaw. Like, I see the stuff that comes through your station. I see the work that you put into this. I see that. You know what I mean? And just like I said, like, we're on a lot of stations, but I can say that, like, my relationship and my communication with you is higher than most of the people that I do work with. And, of course, no disrespect to anybody. You know what I mean? But I see the work that you do, man. You work. They see Outlaw Radio. You know what I mean? They see Outlaw Radio to the point where you're in Canada, and I see people that I know down here that are in Phoenix that end up hitting you up that didn't come through me. Like, they might have saw me repost your flyer or something like that, or they might have saw our interaction, but, I mean, they're finding you in Canada. That was one of the things that I always loved. Like, you know, when I was in New York, you know, they would crack jokes sometimes, just whatever. Like, yo, TJ, you know what? You lived in Arizona. You guys got tumbleweeds, blah, blah, blah. You guys got electricity, you ride horses. It's like whatever. But I always kept this idea that, you know, nobody knows where this place is on the map, you know, unless you're connected to it. Unless it's like, you know, California or New Mexico. If you don't know where it's at, it's just one of those places in the middle of America, like Idaho. I don't know where it is. I'm sure it's a nice place. And if you think, like, who's the biggest radio station in Idaho? Who's the biggest rapper in Idaho? You don't care. Nobody knows. If you're not in Idaho, you don't care. You know what I mean? So what I kept from, and I'm coming back to you, what I kept from that was when I put Radio Supa together, I didn't want to be just the biggest thing here. You know what I'm saying? I wanted to touch the world. You know what I mean? So that's what my focus was day one, and I knew that I hit it when I had artists from New York calling me in Phoenix to get on the air. Then I knew we had something. You know, I just went to New York a little while ago, and I'm still coming back to you. I just went to New York a little while ago, and I got a cousin down there. Big salute to my man, Reddy Ray. And he's like, yo, TJ, I went to one of the clubs down here in New York, and I bumped into one of the dudes in Harlem that was on your radio station. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying this to you now, Outlaw Radio. You know what I'm saying? I'm bumping into dudes in Phoenix that's popping up on your radio station. You know what I'm saying? So I'm saying they see you, Outlaw. That's what I'm saying. That's what I was trying to tell you, bro.
Hey, man, and I gotta say, man, my biggest motto my entire life was, man, if you don't work, you don't eat. You know what I mean? At the end of the day, man, I love this music industry so much, and with the internet, you can do it, man. At the end of the day, rather than me sitting on my ass watching a primetime television show, I could be interviewing someone like a legendary individual like yourself, man. So at the end of the day, why sit there and watch TV when I could be putting in work? So, you know, I'll sleep when I'm dead. That's what I'll say.
Just like that. Just like that. That's how we're gonna do it.
But, man, also, because we're still on the topic of the Radio Supa Show, man, of course, you know, we just learned the history for the individuals that don't already know it. But for the weekly listeners that tune in every single Wednesday at 4 p.m. here on Outlaw Radio FM, what are some of the up-and-coming guests that you currently have scheduled? And, of course, what can we overall expect from the Radio Supa Show itself in the future?
Right. I can pretty much just talk about one guest right now. Just because, you know, I you know, and you understand,
I
don't have them super locked in, then I don't even say anything. You know what I mean? We've had an immaculate, the guest that we have coming up is Potsy. You guys will know him from St. Lunatics. So we have him coming up next week. He's going to be on the show next week. And, but we've had, you know, a beautiful list of guests on the show. You know, Flavor Flav, I think we just ran that episode recently. Cassidy's been on the show. DJ Red Alert's been on the show. MC Light's been on the show. Dress from Black Sheep has been on the show. Dana Dane's been on the show. And, you know, and that list is a long list, and that's just the ones that I'm remembering off the top of my head. But it's been an immaculate list. MC8. It's just been, you know, we've had the Loonies on the show. It's been an immaculate list of people that have come through. You know what I mean? And it's a weekly thing. You understand. Just like I said, you do a lot of work over there, but it's been a real great situation. You know what I mean? And there's still a lot of things on the table for the year that I haven't even discussed with anybody yet. You know, because it hasn't gotten close enough to them. But you know, there's a lot of other things happening that you know we haven't even released yet.
And I'm gonna be honest, that question was pretty much for my own self-knowledge as well, man. Because when your show airs, I actually I'm at work at that current time, so I actually listen to my station and your show while I'm at work, man. So it definitely keeps you motivated, man. Your energy with those interviews and the music you play, they blend so perfectly, man. So it's definitely a hype while I'm able to work and actually listen to your guys' show.
Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir. Thank you, sir.
And of course, man, I gotta ask, because of course you air 2 shows on our radio station, and of course coming up tonight at 10 p.m., pretty much exactly 1 hour away here on 97.7 FM, your syndicated program, the Rock the Mic Show, will be on the air. I was wondering, since we have the man himself, the man of the hour right here on the air, what can our listeners actually expect from this up-and-coming broadcast when they hear it in exactly 60 minutes?
Oh, this show, I believe we had Tato Baby and her manager on the show, Miss Nakia Walker. Nakia Walker's a really interesting individual. She, at one point, was the manager for DMX. So she's a really interesting individual. She will be on this episode of the Rock the Mic Show, and the artist that she's doing work with, Tato Baby, is going to be on. And yeah, Tato, it was a really interesting interview. There's a lot of things coming up from that. And yeah, you guys make sure you guys tune into that one. There's a documentary coming up. There's a lot of stuff coming from that one, and this was a really great episode to film. It was a great episode even behind the scenes.
But also, man, what is next for yourself, TJ Supa, man? Is there anything we happen to miss during tonight's broadcast? Anything else you do still want to talk about or promote? Well, we still got you here live on 97.7 FM this evening.
Beautiful, man. Lot of things inside the works. The things I can talk about, let's see, chase down the newest issue of Media Made magazine. Should be a National Hip Hop magazine. 50 cents on the cover. I have a 3-page spread inside that issue. So make sure you chase that down. And there's going to be more coming, but we're on Media Made right now, so that's how we're going to do it. There's a film that I'm scoring right now. I literally just had a meeting earlier today that there's a lot of independent artists that I've done work with that I put their music in the film. The name of the film is Prankster, and I can't go into too much detail on it because I'm under NDA, but it should be coming out sometime before the end of this year, I would expect. I'm the music supervisor on the film, and there's a lot of artists that I do work with that I put their music inside of the film. So, you know, if there's opportunities that I have to do something for an artist or do something for somebody else, I try to do what I can to make that happen, too. I really try to, slide out a lot of grace when I can slide it out. Continued episodes of the Rock and Mike Show, continued episodes of Radio Supa. There's a music video coming up, and I probably shouldn't even talk about it. Just look out for anything from Nino Bless. You guys will understand Nino Bless is the individual responsible for putting Slaughterhouse together. If you listen to the last, I believe it was the last Crooked Eye album or the last Crooked Eye Joel album, you'll hear Nino talking at the beginning of the album. I did a lot of work with him. He's a good friend of mine. We got some stuff coming up with him. And then just like I said, there's some other stuff down the pipes that I don't even want to get into now because it's a few months off, you know what I mean? So, but yeah, a lot of stuff happening, man. We're still busy. Everything is cracking right now. So, yeah, we're hot right now, man. It's good stuff.
And of course, Supa, before we wrap things up, man, this is the time in the interview right quick that I give a chance for the individual that does slide into the radio station airwaves, just a chance to give, shout-outs to whomever they want to give shout-outs to, but most of all, man, your social media handles. That way our listeners can follow you and your radio station and your radio shows if they're not already doing so.
Perfect. I'll start off with my social media. Social media is at TJ Supa, TJSUPA, at Radio Supa, Radio SUPA, and at Rock the Mike Show, spelled out like you went to school. You know what I'm saying? Rock the Mike Show, just like that. You guys can catch me on that one, but you'll catch me directly at the TJ Supa. My team will probably respond if it goes to Radio Supa or if it goes to Rock the Mike Show. So you can follow me there, and if you're looking for me anywhere else, you can probably just put in TJ Supa or TJ Supa hype, and bam, you know what I'm saying? I'll pull up. I got to give shout-outs. I got to start off with you, Immortal, man. Just like I said, it's an honor for anybody to ever want to, you know what I'm saying, shine some light on you or speak to you or have you talk about your story, man. So I got to give you a big salute for that. You guys are one of my favorite stations. Just like I said, y'all already know. You can see how much we interact. You know what I'm saying? So my highest salute goes to you. I got to give a big salute to my team, Lisa Arenas. Big salute to Lena Marie, my co-host on the Rock and Mike Show. Kim Drawn, my co-host on Radio Supa. Big salute to my man DJ DN3, my cinematographer, Professor Xavier. You know what I'm saying? Professor X. Big salute out to him. My whole squad. Heat 100 DJ Coalition. My guy Rampage. That's my dude. You know what I'm saying? We roll. Big salute to him. You know what I mean? And let's see. I think that's it. I think that's where we're at. You know what I'm saying? But yeah, salute to everybody. And of course, again, it's beautiful. It's beautiful, Immortal. You know what's up.
And I gotta say, first and foremost, Supa, thank you so much, man, for just taking the time out of your evening, sliding into the radio station airwaves. I gotta say, this was definitely a long time coming, man. But of course, thank you to you again, man, for your continuous support, man. Because at the end of the day, man, support, in my opinion, support always goes both ways, man. And just the love you've shown my radio station for so long. I'm gonna be 100% honest, and I'm gonna say this live. I don't do a lot of business with fellow radio station owners, man, because you already know the chintziness that goes on, man. But this is a genuine partnership and friendship, man. So genuinely, thank you, man. I appreciate the love.
Definitely, man. Thank you for having me on the show, man.
Hey, man, you are most certainly welcome, Supa. I'm pretty sure we'll definitely talk again very soon. But for now, definitely have yourself a wonderful night, man. And definitely stay hydrated with that Arizona heat, man. That's crazy.
Go get some water right now, man. All right, have a good day.
You as well, brother. Have a good night.
All right, peace. All right.